you can productize your innovation, that it has commercial value, but then you have to have an operating model. You have to have the discipline to figure out how to productize it, how do you manage it as a project. And I think that ultimately successful innovators have that discipline, right? They know when they need to open the funnel wide and have a lot of ideas to choose from. But as you pointed out in this last example, they have a tried and true process for vetting, putting them on a heat map, prioritizing, down selecting, and determining what they're going to take to market, and then the discipline to follow that through. And knowing when to pivot, but you can't pivot forever. So you do have to have strategic inflection points at which you decide if you're going to pivot. But I think you have an example, I believe, of a medical imaging company that you were guiding, where you were the one that didn't necessarily have the discipline in the process. And I guess that might have turned out to be a good thing. So share that example with us of something that maybe could have gone awry.
Yeah, and actually that's a good also illustration of the prior point, which is once you are a little bit biased for potentially good reasons, but that can get a project off track. And so it's important to have that discipline. I agree. So this is a company that developed, you could call it maybe a GPS for heart surgery, just to make it some kind of heart procedures to just simplify it. And it makes basically a certain type of procedure on the heart a lot more faster and increased success rate. And these are procedures that, anyway, without getting into detail, as you can see, I actually, since I worked closely with them, I'm very excited about this technology. And the reason is that turns out it could save lives, especially children's lives, and adults' lives, but that would need to be really taken care of when they're children. And there is a problem in the market. There was, which the current systems would not allow to perform certain procedures on children. This technology helps to resolve that issue. So it's really, really a matter of life and death for people. And as I was preparing a market analysis to help guide this go-to-market strategy, this one's on behalf of a medical school, actually. It was a patent owned partly by a medical school and a spin-off for the medical school. The feedback I received was enthusiastic, and so much that there's a foundation that actually funds some of the research from the main key opinion leaders in that space. And the president of that foundation told me, as I was interviewing him for to get feedback, first of all, he absolutely wanted to help in any way possible and introduce us to the top professors and hospital departments and so on, to help with the study. But also he said, if this was available when my child was first diagnosed, he would still be alive, and actually his child unfortunately died because of this lack of procedure. And so anyway, long story short, he offered a kind of a collaboration to help take this to market and become a distributor, or help put in place, basically set up a distribution agreement and so on, and very motivated and had all the relationships. So there were all the reasons, as far as I'm concerned, to say, hey, this is a great fit. It turned, so I included that as part of the feedback and options, and I was in favor of that. But the company had already a certain strategy in mind, even although it was a nascent company, and it would have precluded them from a kind of industrial type of partnership, global, and so I was looking at just one part of the market that's case with the US market, they were looking at the global market. This foundation was focused on the US market. So they had the discipline of just staying on track, and it worked really well for them. I think the alternative could have worked, but perhaps not in a global manner. So it's important to stay on track. It worked really well for them.